Most legendary strains spread the same way. A breeder makes something special, starts sharing it around, and it slowly takes over. But the most famous strain in New York history didn't spread like that at all. It spread because somebody stole it. The grower who created it wouldn't hand that cut to anybody, not even his closest friends. But once it slipped out, it went hand to hand through the city until it ran the entire East Coast, and it left so much bad blood behind that some people swear the beef is baked right into the name. This is the story of sour diesel. Now, to find where this whole thing starts, you have to go somewhere you'd never expect. A Grateful Dead concert in Indiana in the summer of 1991. See, back then, the parking lots outside Dead shows were basically open-air markets, and some of the best weed in America moved through those lots. And at that show, a young guy from Massachusetts who went by the nickname Chemdog bought an ounce of the best weed he'd ever smoked from two guys in the lot. When he got home, he found a handful of seeds in that bag, and those few random seeds turned out to be some of the most important seeds in cannabis history. He popped them, and one of the plants that came out was so nasty, so chemical and fuel-smelling, that it got named after him, Chemdog, with his best cut known as Chem 91 after the year it all started. And that Chem line is the seed this whole story grows from, because those genetics started quietly moving down the East Coast, and eventually a cut landed in New York City, right in the hands of the man at the center of this story. He's a grower named Joe, better known as AJ, and back in the 1990s he was deep in the city's underground weed scene, the one that revolved around a legendary downtown music club called Wetlands. And that club was where the Dead show world and the New York smokers all collided. And it's where AJ and his crew were moving some of the strongest weed the city had ever seen. So when that Chem cut got into AJ's rotation, he was sitting on the exact right plant, in the exact right city, at the exact right time. So how did Chem become sour diesel? Well, I've got to be straight with you here, because this is where the story splits, and nobody fully agrees. The version AJ himself tells is that it started with an accident. Somewhere in the grow, his Chem plant got hit with stray pollen. Most people say from a super skunk or a northern lights that hermed out nearby, meaning the plant stressed and threw pollen when it was not supposed to. The seeds from that accident grew into something that kept the Chem fuel stink, but twisted it sharper, more sour and more aggressive. Other people in the scene swear sour diesel is really just a standout cut of Chem 91 that got renamed along the way, and some call that disputed version East Coast Sour Diesel, or ECSD, which is a whole separate debate the old heads still fight about online. The honest truth is that it was never bred on paper, and it was born in a hidden grow room 30 years ago, so we will probably never know for sure. What matters is that whatever happened in that room, it created a one-of-one plant that only existed as a clone. And that plant smelled like absolutely nothing else on Earth, which is exactly where the name comes from. The diesel part is simple, because this strain reeks of fuel. Not a hint of fuel, not a note of fuel. It smells like you spilled gasoline in the room. Chemists will tell you that's largely driven by limonene, the terpene responsible for that sharp citrus fuel edge, sitting on top of a base of myrcene and caryophyllene that gives the whole profile that heavy, pungent weight. It is sharp and loud, and it announces itself through 2 or 3 bags, which in New York became a badge of honor. The whole reason East Coast smokers started calling the best weed around gas. But the sour part is where it gets interesting, because there are 2 competing stories. The simple one says, It is just the smell. That sharp, sour, almost citrus bite sitting on top of all that fuel. But the other story, the one the old heads love to tell, says the sour has nothing to do with the smell at all. They say the name comes from what the strain did to the people around it, because this plant turned friend against friend, and the whole situation went sour. And that brings us to the theft. Because here's the thing, AJ knew exactly what he was holding, and he did not share it. That cut was his crown jewel, the thing that separated his product from everybody else's in the city, so he kept it locked down tight, no clones, no exceptions. But you can only guard something that valuable for so long, and as the story goes, somewhere around the mid-90s, somebody close to the operation got their hands on the cut without permission. Some versions say it was a straight-up break-in. Others say it was a so-called friend who snuck a clone out. Either way, the one thing AJ never wanted to happen, happened. His private cut was loose in New York City. And once it got out, it spread like wildfire. And this is where the divided New York part of the title comes to life. Because the people who got the stolen cut started growing it and selling it all over the city, and everybody who touched it got a piece of the most in-demand weed New York had ever seen. Fortunes got made off a plant the maker never handed over. So you can imagine the fallout. Friendships in that scene cracked apart, crews stopped trusting each other, and for years, there was real resentment over who had the right to grow it, who was selling fake versions, and who owed what. The strain itself, though, was uniting the whole city because everybody wanted it, while the people behind it were falling apart over it. But here's the wild part. All that drama is also exactly why it took over, because the theft put it everywhere at once. Through the 2000s, sour diesel wasn't just a strain in New York. It basically was New York weed. It became the city's status smoke, the one that cost more than everything else on the menu, with legends saying the real cut fetched prices most weed could only dream of, up toward $15,000 a pound at its peak. And people paid it because the high backed it all up. Sour diesel hits fast, almost instantly, and instead of gluing you to the couch, it goes straight to your head, this energetic, talkative, creative, up kind of high that had people calling it Coca-Cola weed, if you get my drift. It was strong, usually testing in the 20s for THC, but it let you move, which made it the perfect city strain for a city that never sits down. And because it owned New York, it ended up owning the culture too, because New York is where the culture gets written. Sour diesel became easily one of the most name-dropped strains in hip-hop history, showing up in bars from just about every major New York artist and way beyond. Styles P, The Lox, Flatbush Zombies, you name it, the same way Patron and 1942 got woven into rap as luxury symbols. Saying you smoked Sour D meant you smoked the best. And its DNA spread just as far as its name, because it became the parent of a whole family of stars, most famously Headband, which crosses Sour Diesel with OG Kush, but also Sour OG, Sour Jack, and a whole tree of Sour This and Sour That hybrids that breeders like DNA Genetics helped push into dispensaries worldwide. More than any other strain, it's the reason gas became the default flavor of East Coast weed, a standard that still holds today. And the story even gets a proper ending, because after 30 years of theft, beef, and bootlegs, the real cut finally came home. In late 2023, once New York opened its legal market, AJ himself partnered with Flower House New York, a licensed New York company, to grow and sell the authentic sour diesel, his cut, legally, in the same city where it all went down. the man who spent decades watching everybody else profit off his stolen plant finally got to put his own name on it, on his own terms. So at the end of the day, sour diesel is way more than a strain with a funny name. It's a plant born from Grateful Dead parking lot seeds and a grow room accident, guarded like treasure, stolen anyway, and spread so far that it crowned itself the king of New York and made fuel the official smell of East Coast weed. The theft that was supposed to be its downfall is the exact thing that made it immortal, even if it left a trail of broken friendships behind it.